John Lennon once said, life is just what happens when you're busy making other plans. And so went the way of this sermon this past week. Our Soul Matters theme this month, Soul Matters is a program of resources that provides help for both our worship services, our religious exploration, and our small group ministry, our chalice circles, whereby we are all working within the same general theme each month. This month's theme is resilience, which can be defined generally as the strength and speed of an individual or group's response to change or adversity. I was pretty well set, generally, to look back at old notes, refresh myself with some new research and some reading, confer with Patsy about finding one or two appropriate selections for readings today, and put an outline together as to what I might share, just so that it's sort of regular week of preparation for services. As much as possible, I wanted to balance the experience of regular people faced with sudden and dramatic change with the work of a group or organization, and how an organization might flex and adjust and grow in the midst of different demands, new demands. Then I happened to notice also that this is Black History Month, and I would want to bring that forward not only this week but throughout the entire month. Black history also being fertile ground for the study of resilience. Then I got an email this week that told me that it's also National Gun Violence Survivors Week, a week in which we honor the survivors of gun violence. Clearly, a profound source of stories and wisdom on the subject of resilience. Of course, today we're also celebrating the success of our annual stewardship drive with a picnic at 12:30, so I needed to think about how to weave all that together and end the service on an upbeat so we could go forth into the picnic with some joy and excitement. And last, but definitely not least, I attended the Planned Parenthood annual dinner last night and heard a very powerful speech by author and journalist Rebecca Traister, who talked about the historic and transformative power of female anger, and not only how it has, but how it must again transcend into a political movement. The resilience of activists for women's rights across not only decades but centuries could provide a great many lessons on resilience. So here we go. There really isn't one good definition of resilience. Rather, it's a package of qualities that one person or a group or even a whole country can put together in the face of change or disruptions, large or small. And it has to do with a strong sense of purpose, but it's not just that. And it has to have a sense of general support. One has to feel supported in order to be resilient. But it's not just that either. It has to do with feeling a part of something greater than yourself. That's a great aid in resilience, but it's not just that. It has to do with love and perseverance and courage and time, but it's none of those things and all of them. It's different for every person because every person, every group, every country has different qualities, different strengths from which they can draw and find their way through the storm, emerging, perhaps, hopefully, somehow a little stronger and a little wiser. But as I said in the meditation, not immune to further disruptions or pain or challenge or change. Resilience is a process that's never ending, especially as our world changes so quickly and so dramatically around each one of us, each and every day. It's a quality that we all have to some degree or another, a quality that we can reach for, but our ability to reach back and reach down within is not always the same. individual to individual, and even within our own lives. We know that there are times when we've been battered, when we're hurting, both emotionally or physically, when one thing after another has worn us down, and it's harder. It's a lot harder to reach down and pull up that sense of hope, and courage, and love, and support, and make it work and find our way through. Most of us here were born into a 20th century which aspired to solve every problem. But that never really succeeded, in part because it's just not the way life works. You don't go from one solution to the next feeling quite satisfied with your ability to do that. Even at the best of times, you might solve one problem and new ones emerge that here and over there, and we never really get on top of everything. So resilience is also that ability to cope in the midst of ongoing change in multiple areas, directions. Resilience asks how to support people, groups, and create systems that know how to recover, persist, and even thrive in the face of change. Resilience isn't necessarily something we're born with, but something we can learn even later in life. As we go through life, we can learn how to best think and grow and work within the incredible change that goes on around us. The Mary Oliver poem that Patsy read just now, that sense of so much loss that you lose sight of what's around you, what's beautiful, reminded me of a program that I was involved in when I was going through seminary. I volunteered for a couple of years at the Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry in Roxbury, Massachusetts, in the inner city in Boston. It's an after-school program that provides a safe and enriching environment for at-risk middle and high school students in the inner city with a goal of building self-esteem and improving academic and interpersonal and leadership skills. During my second year at the urban ministry, I found myself accompanying 7 high school-aged kids to a community-sponsored spoken word program at the Dudley Branch Library in Roxbury. It was a really neat program that aimed at developing spoken word and storytelling and performing arts skills while exploring some of today's pop and hip-hop culture, as well as the deeper issues that affected the community. There was a wonderful young mentor, instructor, who gave the participants some broad parameters, some excellent examples of poetry and the spoken word, and finally led them through activities that helped them develop the confidence and the skills to present their own work before an audience. All this before giving them free rein to do their own thing, develop their own style. One of the young women's names was Janice Williams. She was a junior in high school. 2 years before, she had lost her first boyfriend to gun violence in the community. He was the victim of a stray bullet in a gang war, not involved in it himself. And watching her, even after 2 years, still struggle with how to express both the pain and the anger, and also trying to understand her own moments of joy and how she could have those even when she felt those feelings of pain and anger and then guilt. And through the process of that program, watching her develop a story that she shared ultimately with the audience, a powerful story in rhyme, telling of the experience and really telling of how she emerged through her congregation, her own congregation, her friends, her family. So powerful in watching resilience happen. One of the powerful examples of the spoken word that the instructor offered that year was the poem "Won't You Celebrate With Me" by Lucille Clifton, a wonderful black poet who died in 2010, which coincidentally came up again this week as we looked for suitable readings for this service. The poem speaks of the black experience, but really speaks for itself. Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model. Born in Babylon, both non-white and woman, what did I see to be except myself? I made it up. Here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. Expressing the black experience in America, where the less than resilient dominant culture, and that includes most of us here, continues to try to marginalize people of color and to silence the voices of women whose combined rage at the machine is rightful and will and must win out. When I was at the Martin Luther King Jr. Day March a couple weeks ago, the mothers demanding action for gun sense in America had a booth, and I spoke then to Kathleen Muniz, and then I got a subsequent email from her. She is one of the organizers of the group and the member lead for the survivors in the organization. She sent me a link, which I will share with you in the newsletter this month. Everytown.org, Moments That Survive. Stories that both wrench the heart and are uplifting examples of how people survive and thrive, examples of resilience in our world. I think when I looked at those, I thought of the Parkland students whose tour came through here a little over a year ago, speaking truth to power, telling their stories of the moments during that time, shooting in their high school, finding their own voice as Janice Williams did, finding ways to work through that which they experience, that which they fear, building community as they did so, and coalitions to make change amidst the challenge of a society trying too hard to hold on to something that never really was and doesn't work. As a liberal religious community here in Southwest Florida, we find ourselves often feeling our place in this culture, the strain and challenge of adversity. We look to find ways to welcome all those who seek a sort of refuge in an anxious and unpredictable world. On this day, when we celebrate the generosity, the financial generosity of so many of you, and the end of a stewardship campaign that has been remarkably successful, we know too that what makes this community so wonderful and so strong is its generosity in the ways of the Spirit and of love. Even as we look forward, as we will in the coming months, to reimagining our future and what this place might look like in the year 2025, we hold the core mission of building that wider community of peace, justice, and love dear to our hearts. That common mission, that common sense of purpose that binds us together is one of the things that will continue to provide this community with the essential element of resilience to change and grow and reach out and reach back and be all that it has been and all that it can be, all in that spirit of love and generosity. As we explore the topic of resilience this month, we know that the essential element is here in this room, in the courage of many of our members and the survival skills that many of you have discovered through trial, in the wonderful joy of finding people who think alike, who love alike. We are grateful for one another, for our combined generosity, and for the love and future of a beautiful congregation. So may it be.